Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Denise Flores, and this is my FRP presentation. The topic I decided to do was educational barriers among Chicanos/Latinos in the United States. Okay. So to begin with, my abstract, my study investigates systemic educational barriers confronting Chicanos/Latinos in the United States. It traces historical roots from early 20th century segregation to modern day inequalities. It argues that educational disparities are produced by structural and institutional forces rather than cultural deficits. The research highlights where progress has occurred and what barriers remain, aiming to inform policy and social change. So, for a bit of an introduction, Chicano and Latinos are among the largest and fastest growing minority populations in the United States. Yet they face persistent disparities in high school completion, college enrollment, and degree attainment. Many attribute this to individual or cultural factors, but that overlooks systemic issues. So, kind of my purpose is to unpack how institutional structures and social contexts produce educational inequities and to kind of get deeper into my research topic and significance. So, again, my research topic is educational barriers among Chicano and Latinos in the United States. And my topic or focus is institutional and structural educational barriers faced by Chicanos/Latinos in the United States, K through 12, and higher education. So, my significance and purpose is that Latinos are a major and growing segment of U.S. students. Educational equity affects many. Education is a key route to social mobility. Persistent barriers sustain inequality and limit community advancement. This research contributes to sociological understanding by showing how race, class, and language and history intersect to shape educational outcomes. It challenges deficit based explanations, cultural and individual choices, and foregrounds structural injustice. So here are just some concepts and definitions and relevance of the words and concepts that I'll be using throughout the PowerPoint. So my thesis is that despite progress towards educational pluralism or multiculturalism, Chicanos/Latinos continue to face systemic educational barriers rooted in historical discrimination, persistent institutional racism, and contemporary socioeconomic inequality. These barriers are produced through de facto segregation, unequal school funding, racialized expectations, and linguistic marginalization, proving that Latino educational inequity is structural rather than cultural. And these are some of the research questions that my research seeks to answer, but the one I will be focusing on the most is what structural and institutional forces limit educational attainment for Chicano and Latinos in the US? So here are some historical foundations of educational inequality. In the early to mid 20th century, many Latino children were placed in segregated Mexican schools, often underfunded and focused on vocational training rather than academics. Racialized labor systems, example, agricultural labor, migrant work for Mexican Americans, limited incentives for academic investment and reinforced socioeconomic marginalization. The experience of being treated as a subordinate group normalized limited access to quality schooling. An example of this is urban Latino communities were often denied resources, proper curricula, and experienced institutional neglect, laying the groundwork for persistent educational disadvantages. A case study that I wanted to focus on was the 1968 East LA walkouts. Between March 1st to March 6th, 1968, as many as 22,000 students from 7 East LA schools walked out to protest underfunded schools, overcrowded classrooms, lack of college prep courses, and absence of culturally relevant curriculum. Students demanded included bilingual education, fair funding, racially diverse staff, and inclusion of Mexican American history and curricula. These walkouts marked a pivotal moment in the broader Chicano civil rights movement and challenged the assumption that Latino students should accept educational neglect. So beforehand, I didn't really know about the East LA walkouts. Like I've heard of them, but I never really knew what they were. And basically, like, kind of to go more in depth of what they were, in East Los Angeles, a bunch of schools were experiencing, well, because East LA was and still is a majority of low income families, immigrant families, Latino, Hispanic families. And just like there was like counselors and teachers kind of saying to like seniors and juniors in high school, like, oh, like you won't make it to college, you won't be able to handle college, like don't think about college, try to do like house cleaning or try to be like a mechanic at most. And so kind of like they were just downgrading them a lot and kind of that is what the East LA walkouts kind of led to. They were like if students were caught speaking in Spanish in classes, the teachers would tell them like no, no Spanish, like you have to speak English. I'm not gonna give you anything in Spanish, like you have to understand everything in English. So that's kind of like a way to show how degrading it was back then. Um, and kind of going back to the same thing, institutional racism and school funding inequality, which is another issue, is so today many Latino majority districts remain underfunded compared to wealthier majority white districts. This is a manifestation of institutional racism. Underfunded schools often lack experienced teachers, college prep classes, counselors, extracurricular resources, limiting academic opportunity. In higher education, many Latino students attend under-researched colleges or institutions with fewer supports, affecting completion rates. These disparities are not due to student motivation but due to structural funding and resource inequities. So kind of to add on to this topic is very personal to me, first of all, because I am first gen, I'm a Latina, I'm Mexican American, and so like I have seen like how all of this has applied to real life. And speaking about that, with school funding inequality, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and that's like a very underfunded, very immigrant, low income, Mexican American, Hispanic, Latino community. And like it is very seen how we're underfunded in schools. And specifically, like me, I decided to take it on my own and like find the resources and like do everything on my own um, to go to school, to high school in Culver City, which is a majority white district. And I was able to get the programs and the resources and the guidance and the counseling that is like easily seen different from my friends who who still decided to stay in South Central, and they're like, oh, like I we don't have programs like that here, like oh, we don't have the same resources here, so it's still like easily seen to this day. And speaking of underfunding, I wanted to talk about this topic that is even more recent, just a few months ago. So, institutional barriers and a recent policy shift, HSI funding cuts. In September 2025, the US Department of Education ended discretionary grant funding for minority serving institutions, including many HSIs. HSIs meaning Hispanic serving institutions. Over $350 million in grants nationwide were discontinued, with more than $250 million allocated for Hispanic serving institutions specifically. The department justified the cuts by arguing that race-based eligibility criteria for HSIs are unconstitutional, declaring the grants discriminatory under current legal interpretations. As a result, dozens of colleges and universities with large Latino student populations lost funding for support services, tutoring, advising, STEM initiatives, and other programs that benefited first generation low income and minority students. This rollback represents a significant structural barrier, undermining efforts towards equity, social mobility, and institutional support for Latino students. This is something that just happened under the Department of Education under Trump's administration, which says a lot during our times. But this is something that affects us now, personally, once again, and something really, really, really present just a few months ago. Well, I forgot to change the title. I'm so sorry, but some stuff I wanted to add about contemporary segregation or de facto segregation. Despite the end of legal segregation, Latino students are increasingly concentrated in racially and economically segregated minority majority schools. In many districts, Latino white segregation levels have risen since the 1980s. Segregated schools often coincide with concentrated poverty, limited resources, and lower quality educational opportunities. Again, it doesn't seem purposely done, but it really is. Depending, like, you're in a community where you know, like, oh, we're underfunded, we're low income, we're immigrants, we're Hispanics. So there's schools there, and those are the closest, and those schools are put there for a reason because we're there. So it kind of just coincides still to this day. And something I wanted to add about cultural and linguistic marginalization is that many schools enforce English only policies and lack bilingual or culturally competent staff, disadvantaging Spanish speaking or bilingual Latino students. Latino students are often tracked into vocational or remedial courses, limiting access to college prep pathways. Curriculum often neglects Latino history and culture, reinforcing stereotypes and depriving students of representation and cultural affirmation. Again, this is something that isn't like something that we're blind to. This is something very obvious that some of us probably have experienced. Um, in elementary school, I was put into a Spanish speaking exam kind of thing to see if I could be put in with the regular kids or if I can be put in a Spanish speaking only um, course thing to follow along. So it still separates us. So my counter argument to my thesis was that educational gaps exist because Latino families or communities do not value education or come from cultural backgrounds that de-emphasize schooling. But my rebuttal and evidence to that counter argument is that surveys and data show that many Latino families highly value education and aspire to college for their children. Structural constraints, economic hardship, underfunding schools, lack of guidance, linguistic barriers create obstacles despite aspiration. Blaming culture ignores systemic inequalities and reproduces deficit based stereotypes. So, something positive, some trends in progress, educational attainment among Latinos. High school graduation among Hispanic young adults ages 25 to 29 rose from 58.2% in 1996 to 88.5% in 2021. College enrollment among Hispanic youth ages 18 to 24 increased from about 1.2 million in 2005 to 2.4 million in 2021. However, as of 2021, only about 20% of Hispanics 25 and up had a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to 35% of all Americans. Many Latino students still attend under-resourced institutions, work part-time or full-time, face food/housing insecurity, and lack support, undermining degree completion. In my conclusion, educational barriers for Latinos/Chicanos are systemic, structural, and historical, not simply a matter of individual motivation or culture. The legacy of segregation, institutional racism, underfunding, linguistic marginalization, and socioeconomic inequality continues to shape educational outcomes. Though the progress has been made, rising graduation and enrollment rates, significant disparities remain, especially in degree completion and equitable access to resources. True educational equity requires systemic reform, equitable funding, culturally responsive pedagogy, bilingual/slash bicultural support, resources for under-resourced schools, and dismantling segregation. Education isn't just about individual success, it's a matter of social justice, civil rights, and structural equality. And then here are my references/resources that I used. And thank you.